Yeah, hey, this is Mike, the Erudite DM, and I am here tonight. I think we're recording at least. Yes, we are. I'm here tonight with some friends from the YouTube space, Mike Melnick and James Bacon.
Hello, hello.
Some of you that game with me will know James as Better with Bacon, and you'll know him from lots of other channels discussing lots of topics. He probably should be the Erudite Bacon.
No, I'm the pedantic Bacon.
Like DM or something. I don't know. We can always change our names, I guess. But so this is a project I'm very excited about because last year I got to know Bacon a little bit before I knew Mike, and was invited to discuss 4D play style in RPGs. And I found it's an immersive style of play where you try to stay in character. There's some disciplines that requires a little bit more effort than what we play when we're maybe having a couple of beers, around a table with our buddies. It's just a different style of play, and I think it gets a bad rap by some people before they really understand it. So we're going to take advantage of speaking with these two gentlemen because they just put out, and I'm going to pull it up on screen here with me. Hopefully I pull it up in the right. There it is.
Yeah. They
have just published Everything You Need to Know. For now, there may be other publications later, but for now, the space was, the gaming space was missing an explanatory set to describe how this style of play works. They put together the beginners, the 4D, how do we say that? The beginner's 4D handbook, I guess, a role play style primer. And I was able to download it for free, as you can, off a Drive-Thru RPG. So a lot for me. I'm going to shut up now and ask questions, but Mike, James, please tell us about the background of the project before we get into 4D even. How did this come about? What need did you see? Why did it happen?
I'll kick this off because it started when I got interested in 4D. And no, you're in. I got interested in 4D, and what happened was I started making notes about the various videos that I was seeing and talking to Bacon about, what should I view, where do I go, making notes and asking him questions and this and that. And then at one point, what happened is I took my notes and in a Google Doc, and I said, "Hey, take a look at these. Tell me what you think." And that was that was sort of the birth of where this came from, because he then said, you should really do something with this. And I was like, well, I was kicking around making a primer or something like that about 4D. And before you know it, we were teamed up and we were on the road to writing this.
Yeah, I 100% invited my own damn self to do this with Mike. And that's the way it happened, is that I started to talk about 4D on my channel. Mike, a friend from another YouTube community, Heath Geekverse.
Yep.
So shout out to Heath. And he came to me. He was like, "Hey, I've been watching your videos. I've been watching Crispy's videos," because there was, obviously there's a little bit more out there, or a lot more out there than just me. But I had mentioned it and piqued the interest, and so he went investigating on his own, started watching Crispy's videos and a bunch of the other guys' videos, and he sent me some notes. He was like, "Hey, what do you think?" And I read them, and I was like, "These are great." And then, like he said, I was like, "Hey, you should do something with this." And then he said a primer would probably be the next logical step. And I said, "Well, hey, look, I'm an editor and I can do layout and I'm happy to be involved." And he went, "Yeah, sure, you're my guy." So we just kind of started working together, and it's been a really great partnership. Really, it's just been great working with him. And so he had all the notes, he had taken everything, and it was really just a compilation of that sounds like I'm making it a diminutive, but I'm not. It was the collection and a compilation and a collation of all of the information out there that takes place across. So we say this a little bit in the handbook. It happens in a bunch of different YouTube videos, across a bunch of different channels, fast moving Discord conversations that are really hard to track after the fact. And some other things were in there as well. Conversations, just personal conversations between people who just like to play role-playing games. And so we sat down together, wrote it, and then it was in layout hell for months. But now here we are.
And there was asking you repeatedly, like, "Hey, how's it coming? How's it coming?"
Yeah. Well,
it's gonna be out for Thanksgiving. No, it's gonna be out for Christmas. How's it coming? How's it coming?
Well, the original plan was to have it out before Christmas, and we were on schedule for that. But while we were waiting for Drive-Thru to approve it, we had gone through and decided that it needed a major rewrite. I say we. It was me. I decided it needed a major rewrite, but I certainly asked Mike. I wanted to put it, I'm not just going to do it.
No, but let's be honest about it. You came to me and you thought I was going to be really angry.
Yes.
And
yes.
I was not.
and it's because the focus, the original, as it originally existed, the focus was not... It was not singular, right? There were a whole bunch of ideas that we were trying to pull in, and reading through it, it was just like, no, this isn't primer material. Let's just cut it. Let's just get rid of it. So we ended up getting rid of it, and we rewrote some sections. Other sections we replaced entirely, and some have just been removed. And now we still have those sections, so it's not like they've been black holed. Maybe that they'll turn into something, but I don't think we really have any plans for them at this moment. We do have plans to make other stuff, but I think that after this, we kind of want to do something more creative. So we'll see what we can do in a creative space and be more creative. But that's the origin story of this. It was all.
It was clear. I'm sorry. It was clear you had to start somewhere though to set the table, right? Let's define what this even is, because it pops up on X, it pops up on Facebook, it pops up, at different times, different weeks. Those of us who are watching this, and the three of us, we're very heavy into the dungeon tuber scene, if you want to call it that, right? We watch creators, we watch people who write books, and we have these kind of, I don't want to say esoteric, more philosophical discussions about how to play and ways to make it more fun. And at the end of the day, that's all it is. It is not yet another argument to have about something about, oh, this is the right way, this is the wrong way.
Exactly.
Nonsense. That's not even necessary. And there's more I can say. I'll say more in the video because I have a little bit of experience. I was invited to play in a game. I learned a lot. And like I told you guys before we went, on the video here and started recording, it's changed some things subconsciously in the way I play. Not all the time, but I'll find myself sliding into some things that I'm going, oh, this is what I learned in 4D. And the other players look at me like, what is he doing? Oh, okay. I guess they don't even say it out loud. It's just they start mimicking what you're doing. And it's it's like a really cool viral thing that makes for a really fun style of play. Anyway, without giving us the whole history, I was very impressed with the way you guys addressed. Let's set this up from day one, which you can argue goes back into the 50s and 60s and earlier in sci-fi circles and in wargaming circles. I actually tried this to a degree when I was doing Napoleonic wargaming in the 90s with 6 millimeters, core level units and a 1 to 20 scale. So a battalion had 36 figures. They looked so impressive on the table. I've sold them all. Don't ask me. I'll start crying on you. I don't want to.
The smaller the mini, the cooler the game. I love
the scale. The scale thing becomes important in Napoleonic here with all the pretty colors and everything. Anyway, I started trying this with my guys and just writing up an idea where why don't we play the core commanders? We're depicting and leading those troops, and we'll play an ongoing campaign. And at the end, we'll show where our units were, which one retreated, and we can do letters back and forth, all the problems the French had in Spain when Napoleon wasn't there babysitting them. They'd fight over who's in charge and you're not the boss of me and that kind of thing. Anyway, it was basically getting in character role play. It never worked. But so when this idea came out, I was already back into role playing here. Tell me where it all began, kind of where it started, the short version, because I do have a lot of questions and comments I want to ask you guys about.
Well, all of that information was borrowed from Peterson's The Elusive Shift, which we cite it's an entire chapter, really. And the idea is that people have been after more satisfying in-character play since before role-playing games was even a name, right? Like when Dungeons and Dragons was still a war game, according to Gygax, because he resisted the term role-play game, I think, at least according to Peterson. But there were ideas of, well, what if we play a one-to-one, like it's you and you play this character, in the American West, and I think it was a British game. I don't have the details in front of me, so I'm probably going to get a lot of this wrong, just off the top of my head. But they started to kick around ideas about, you know, how to portray the character better. They considered it a war game. It was still a war game, and their club was a war game club, but they wanted to sort of start dabbling in that sort of thing. And from there, they began to ask questions. Well, is it a war game? And if it's not a war game, what is it? And then they began, it's not even they began. There were all sorts of suggestions throughout the history of wargaming and what became role-playing games to get into character better. For example, instead of optimizing your moves on the board when you're moving your units around, you consider them, instead of the little computer miniatures or lead or whatever was being used at the time, that they're actual people, they have families, and that you kind of issue the orders with compassion over optimization. So that was a suggestion. There were suggestions with regard to like guided meditation and like meeting your character in your mind's eye first before you assume who they were in the game. Acting or playing according to your character's stats instead of you as the player. So if the character is dumb as a rock, then that's how you're, you know, suggested to play it to get more satisfying in character play. And 4D just becomes another one of those suggestions. It's just, instead of being the one thing like guided meditation, it's a group of smaller things to help, you know, get people into that in character space. And, you know, and this is something that I'm sure we're going to talk about because I'm going to say it here. Not all of them are going to work for everyone.
Right.
They don't have to all work for everyone. Right. And I know that's a disclaimer, and I know that you got questions about disclaimers, or maybe even a statement, because we are painstaking in assuring people throughout the volume that, look, man, there's no judgment here. We're not trying to be elitist. We want you to just try it out. Just play the game. Just try it out. What works, works. What doesn't. And, you know, we maybe overstate that a little bit, but we wanted to be absolutely certain that that message came across clearly.
Yeah, it's not a religious crusade or something.
Yeah, no, it's not.
This is our hobby we all do for fun in our spare time, and this is merely proposing a method that you might get more fun out of it. You might not, and if you don't, and you don't use it at all, that's okay too. We'll still play together at a table.
Absolutely, yes. That's always been my philosophy. I
Yeah,
want to play with people at tables. However you want to play, I'm cool with it, man. Let's go.
There's too many arguments, right, that fragment us in all areas of our life. God knows we don't need it in the one gaming thing we do for fun for a few hours during the week for enjoyment. Let's leave that somewhere else.
And I'll tell you what, like, I'm not the sort of person to say, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, there are people out there who are going to be very passionate about the way that they want to play, and they're going to present it as though it is the best or whatever. I'm not telling them not to do that. You do your thing, man. I'm going to watch. I'm going to read. I'm going to hear what you have to say. It's going to be very entertaining to me. That's just not me. So I'm not going to say that. But if you want to, go ahead. I'm not telling you not to.
Yeah. Bro, they're definitely out there. I don't know who they are, but bro, they are out there.
Yeah.
Now I love them all, but yeah, they are on a religious crusade sometimes. Some of them. So anyway, yeah. So we got to this point, and for whatever reason, can you guys just touch on Shauner and who he was, and because it sounds like he's kind of a focal point for a lot of you that kind of knew him and followed his stuff, and he was really into this immersive style of play.
Yeah. Mike, do you want to take this, or do you want?
No,
me
go
to?
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so Shauner was he has passed, sadly, but he was kind of one of the origin points for the term 4D. So he would, in his videos, talk about 2D and 3D games, and then 1D and 4D eventually grew out of those terms. And it was just a way for him to label what he viewed as specific strengths and weaknesses within the play when he compared it to the style that he preferred, which was, in character role play. And then there's another individual, Big Bad RPG, who concurrently used those terms 1 through 4D, but not to sort of measure game quality or what, I don't even know how to phrase it. But he decided that he was going to use those terms, again, independent from Shawner, that he was going to classify sort of the stages of role-playing game players. Like when you first come to the hobby, maybe it's a little mystifying, maybe it's a little awkward. So you would start off as like 1D, and then you would progress through the learning process to become more proficient and more engaged in this hobby that you've chosen to engage in. We make it very clear up front that we are doing away with that stratification. I don't like it. There are many people who do like to play in the 4D style that don't like it. And it just, for us, it was time to break ranks and say, no, we're not going to do this. This isn't about judging anyone's games. This isn't about judging anyone's skill level. This isn't about that kind of elitism or that specific type of gatekeeping. And so we've just eliminated it. So we treat 4D as what it really is, which is a name for a play style. The name does have an origin. It did initially have that kind of a meaning, but since the name is stuck, like it's been here well before I got here, well before Mike got here. So we're just using what we were handed. And I think 4D as a name it's punchy. People want to know what you mean when you say it. There's always that question, what does 4D mean? What's the D? Is it dimension? What does that mean? Are there 3 other dimensions? And so, the answer that we prefer to give at this point is no, there are no other dimensions. This is just the name for a particular style of play.
Yeah, maybe it'll evolve to something else in the future. But
that's very possible. That's
exactly.
very possible.
I want to start flipping through this, guys, just so they kind of see here instead of looking at the cover. By the way, the artwork is very nice. There's some Dean Spencer.
We bought all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. I wasn't expecting that when I got in here. I thought it was going to be more like an academic, scholarly thing, and it is in some way. It is in some ways. I mean, you cite your sources in the back there. If people want, which appendix is that? Is it A, where it talks about some of the other additional reading and books and things you could pick up?
Appendix A,
yeah. So I'm going to skip over the preface. Was it the foreword by
Crispy? Yep.
Crispy,
He wrote the foreword.
People run a Crispy. Yeah, he writes a very nice foreword. And he says some of those defensive maneuvers as well about, hey, it's not for everybody, and we're not saying you have to play this way. And then I read the preface from the 2U, and it kind of does the same thing yet again. But I understand it's like what we're trying to avoid are futile arguments, right? And
there is a specific tone and approach that many people throughout the hobby sort of latch onto, and I'm not trying to get anyone's hackles up, right? I don't want someone to be set on edge because I said, hey, because I said in the wrong way, this is a cool style. Oh, what do you mean it's the only style? Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. And we decided to blanketly state that throughout the book and say, nope, this isn't the only way. There are other ways. Like even for the in-character stuff, that's pretty. I would say there's like 1 or 2 things maybe that's very unique to 4D, but most of it isn't, right? Most of it goes back to the beginning of the hobby, with the exception of like cell phones, right? Not everyone had a cell phone back when the hobby first started, but now they do. And so there are tons and tons and tons of tables out there that say, hey, no cell phones, put them in whatever, put them in the drawer when you come to the table. Yeah. So we just kind of, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm going to stop talking.
No, it's okay. We have a lot to talk about, and I appreciate it. And I jotted out some notes, but I apologize if I get lost here. You guys use the time the way you wanted to tell people about this play style and what's important. I zipped on ahead to the essentials of 4D role playing because I thought these are the cornerstones, right? This is really, we told them about the history. We told them about how people argue on the internet. We've set the table ourselves. Let's go into it now. So when you're playing the game, what are the core building blocks of it? And if you guys just want to address them on the page here by category, that's fine.
Yeah, I think high trust is we put first because it's something that is mentioned a lot in the 4D, community, if you will. That is, I don't know if it's always appreciated. Like, I'm sure it applies to other games, people's games in general, but I don't know if it's always appreciated as its own thing. And this high trust idea of you're not worried about people cheating, you're not assuming the worst out of people, you're, everybody's looking for, a common shared goal of playing this game, all these features of a high trust game, they make the game more, I don't know, not just enjoyable, but smoother. I mean, it just smooths out a lot of the rough edges. Sometimes on various websites or whatnot, you hear people ask about, what do I do when my gaming group is like this and, and I'm doing this or whatever. And the most common advice they get is to talk to the gaming group. Well, in a high trust game, you've worked out those things ahead of time and it just smooths out all those rough edges that you might encounter that are sticking points in other ways. And, it kind of is a super important and valuable part of the 4D table, if you will, because of that.
Well, a game that any of these games that we play, right, the three of us, they're a collaboration between the GM and the players. And I assume that the high trust part is part of what you guys call the social contract. It's saying that, hey, we're all investing our time and our time away from work, time away from our family. It's going to be fun, but I only have a limited amount of this. Here's how we're going to play this. I'm going to speak as my character the whole time in character. I'm going to pay attention closely. I'm going to listen closely. I'm going to know when it's my turn. I'm not going to ask the DM, can I roll with my battle axe? No. You just, when it's your turn and you want to attack, if you're playing Roll20 or something, you attack and you do your damage and they move on. And the DM will explain those things for you. And when it's your turn, you're going to speak in character and say, I move across the room, feeling the floor very gently with the tip of my spear for pressure plates. I look down the hall to my left. And then I stop right there for my companions to catch up. And then you're going to stop, right? I mean, the thing I like, or later in the book, you guys talk about how the turn play is so much faster because you naturally, you get into the spirit of it with the other folks playing. This is not a time for soliloquy, right? This is not a grand performance. It's a few sentences about what you're doing next. And I forgot what the other term you use is in 4D play, but you're anchoring. I think it's anchoring. You're explaining that I stop in front of the door in the left, and listen. And then it's somebody, you pause, and then the next person kind of knows after that pause, great. I start talking as my character. But no one is cross-talking. No one is side-talking. No one is making my beloved Monty Python jokes. It's not that kind of game. And it's okay. If you screw up, it's totally okay. We get right back into it.
Yep.
And what you find is that concentration, it just creates a different type of setting and a feel that is very rewarding in its own way and very different than the typical games I've played in the past. I like them both. Let's go on here because
sure.
I'll start giving you guys feedback and y'all won't even have a chance to say anything because I'll talk. Collaborative mindset.
Well, you kind of touched on that already with regard to like the convergence that kind of naturally happens at the table when I'm paying attention to what you're doing on your turn and you're telling me where you are, and then I go ahead and have my turn, and it really has an impression that it sort of leaves at the table. But also when you sit down to play the game and you're going to, or you want to play in the 4D style, It's a lot, I think. Easier is not the right word, but I'm going to say easier. It's easier if the whole table really kind of knows what they want to do before they sit down, right? Like, okay, we're definitely going to try to play in 4D. So here's what we need to do. We need to be unified in this effort. It's very much a table decision to participate than an individual decision. Now, that doesn't mean like obviously you can still like you had the experience that you were explaining with Lord Mattias's game, how you were in character and it was kind of affecting the role play of the other players at the table. Like, you can still do these things without saying, okay, I agree to do 4D. And also, we mentioned in the handbook that there are going to be those tables where, like, just in an instant it clicks and everyone is in character and no one wants to interrupt it, and there's some negotiation that's taking place, or there's some event, some combat, and everyone is absolutely like wrapped and in the scene and ready to go and paying attention. That absolutely does happen. So it's not like you don't have to sit down to a table to agree for that to happen. It can just go. But the goal of 4D is to attempt to provide these moments for players to get into character as often as possible and stay there for as long as possible. Which you're going to get sick of reading throughout the handbook because it's all over the place.
No,
Like,
it's great.
that's the idea, right? So the idea is that while those moments can absolutely and do absolutely happen at a moment in any game, 4D is kind of trying to set the table so that it has at least how to say this, right? Because it's like, it's not a guarantee. You can set the table and then nothing happens when you're playing the game. So it's not a guarantee, and I don't want to make it sound like it's a guarantee. It's an attempt, right? This is what we like to do. This is how we understand that it can happen. So let's try to give it the most opportunity for success that we think we can give it. It's not a guarantee, and I don't want it to come across that way.
Yeah, you're creating the environment to maybe make it more likely.
Oh, that's a much better way to say it in far fewer words.
And one thing that just came to me, and I don't know that I saw it anywhere in here, but I think someone who hears about this the first time could easily make the mistake that this means they have to be a performer, an actor, and use a neat British accent or a Scottish voice and all those things. And it is not. It is not at all. You can speak a regular voice.
Yeah, and we do actually mention that briefly.
Is it okay?
Sorry, I think it's in one of the sidebars. We mentioned that it's really a matter of what experience you want to get out of it, and so if your preferred experience is eliminating filler words and using character voices, then by all means seek that experience out. And 4D is very happy to allow for that, provide for that, accommodate for that. But it's not a necessity. You don't have to speak in a character voice. You don't have to eliminate filler words. Lord knows I and all over the place when I'm playing a game. Yeah, for sure.
I'm a huge believer in the less is more concept, whether it's in my business or in my personal life. My wife and I planning our home and getting rid of things as we get older that we don't need. And I think in a way it is an underlying, maybe it's not a building block of 4D style, but it is a result. Because what happens is you find that without all the jokes, without all the awkward need to fill in the silence, and I understand sometimes you're socializing too at the table, then play that beer and pretzels. If you haven't seen these people for a month, you want to ask them about work in between roles, go for it. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if you're trying this system, less is definitely more. And what I mean by that is the game speeds up. The game becomes very intense. Suddenly you don't hear the TV in the other room anymore. You don't hear the kids playing downstairs. You're concentrating on what's happening next, when my turn is next. Your heart's racing a little bit. You got a little bead of sweat maybe on the top of your, if it's a really intense session. But yeah, so doing less things, and it just requires a little bit of practice. I won't even say discipline, just some practice Really, really impressed with it, and I hope to play it again soon. But jumping back into this, if you guys want to take self-reflection and accountability and feedback, please help us out here.
Yeah, I think that these two go hand in hand in many ways. I mean, one of the things that was unique for me when I started digging into 4D was the idea that this was developmental, meaning that people wanted to improve and they would self-reflect on their own play and try to try something new next game, or they would self-reflect on their own play and call themselves out. No one was calling them out really, but they would put themselves out there to think about, well, how can I be better? And feedback was in essence baked into the process, which I found actually refreshing personally, because it's one of those things where, we all want to be, this is our hobby. We spend a lot of time in it, finding ways that you can improve and be better is really, a way to say, how can I get more from the hobby itself? And I think that those two things, as a result, really fit hand in glove, because, to accept feedback and to give feedback, you're also, being accountable. You're also reflecting on your own role play and your own, game experience. And these things work to make 4D increasingly a more intense play style.
Yeah, almost the thing that just popped into my head, Mike, was that, if you were to compare these to cars, our Beer Pretzels game is the 4-door sedan, right? Or the family SUV. It will get you where you're going. You'll be comfortable. The AC works. Everything you need is there. But then on the other side, you might have that Maserati, Ghibli SL2, like I did at one point, but I don't. But you might have that sports car, that really fine sports car, and it provides a much better experience and performs at just a different level that can blow you away, right? That could be 4D.
I really like, and I hadn't thought of that, I really like the car comparison, because cars as, tools, utility items, it's really important that the type of car you buy meets your specific need, right? So if I have a family of 6, then a minivan or an SUV, like there are performance items and options that you can get that are really going to help you meet your needs. But like, it's not really just a matter of getting you around. Any car will get you around. It's a matter of how you prefer to get around in that car and what your needs are, and if it meets your needs. I really like that. And at first, when you started, I was hesitant. I was like, well, we don't want to go, like, the whole reason we removed 1D through 3D is because we don't want to get into that comparison game. But that's not really the case with cars, right? Like,
you can be satisfied with both vehicles.
Yeah, you can drive an SUV and admire the McLaren. You can drive the McLaren and go, man, I'd love to start a family. I'd love to have need for a minivan. Like, you can do that. There's an admiration because they serve different purposes. They're tools, and they're both tools that will get you from point A to point B. It's just a matter of where point A and B is. Is point A and B a starting line and a finish line, or is point A and B getting the family from home to dinner and back? You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just completely different purpose. I like that comparison. I'll have to kick that around a bit more, but I think it absolutely serves to illustrate.
Cool. What about feedback, Mike? You want to pick that back up again?
Yeah.
Where you were? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that when, part of the process that we talk about in the handbook here is this idea that feedback is baked in. Sometimes you'll hear advice from GMs or players. Well, how can I improve in this and that? And in 4D, that's sort of baked in. You're going to, have an option. It's not odd for me to look at Bacon after a session and say, what did you think about what I did? I thought I did this kind of wrong, or I thought I messed up here. What did you think about that? And it's not odd to do that. It's almost inherent to the approach. So you get a lot out of that when people are working together in that collaborative idea. and they're partially working together also to give each other feedback on ways to improve and on the things that you find important about your own play, which is really important, right? They're not just offering feedback, willy-nilly. They're offering feedback about the things that you're thinking about and reflecting on yourself.
Yeah,
So
I think the key there is not to be too sensitive and not to be too judgmental when you're giving the feedback, and not to be too sensitive when you're receiving it. Just be, fair and helpful, and try to remember what you said a little while ago about being this is a collaboration at the table. Well, then treat it like a team. If you're on a sports team, how do you want to make the other players better, right? And try to make them better, and they'll try to make you better, and it improves the whole process for everyone.
absolutely.
Let's see, flipping through here. Okay, here's a favorite here. What do we want to say about no out of character talking?
I mean,
If
go ahead.
Out of character. I'm sorry, Mike. I'll let you answer.
No, take it.
I'm just going to drop a joke. If you're speaking out of character at all, at any point during any of your games, then your games are bad and you are wrong. Obviously, I'm kidding. But go ahead, Mike.
The wrong way, damn it.
No, I mean, the out of character talking elements is, a hallmark of 4D in the sense that we're trying to stay in character for as long as possible. And when people say out of character things, it tends to pull you out of the character. Not unlike when you act in character, it can tend to pull other people in character as well. So it's sort of, it's which direction are you trying to pull the game? And I think the other thing about out of character talking is that sometimes this is, about questions asked of the GM or asked of other players, and they'd be much more interesting if asked in character than out of character. Rather than me saying, geez, Bacon, does your character hate me? It'd be a lot more interesting for me to be in character and act that scene out where I come to him and I, ask, is there an issue that we have between us, brother? Like something like that. And we have that drama moment. And sometimes out of character talking tends to take away from those really, I think, impactful moments in games.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. Of course I would. We discussed it before we put it in the book. But in addition to, like, things are stated pretty strictly in the book sometimes, and it's not we hoped to maybe sort of come back around and revisit these items in the pitfalls, trade-offs and pitfalls, which I'm sure we'll get to, but like in this moment, I think it's appropriate to bring up, like, no out of character talking. Look, there are going to be tables that just don't like that. There is a personality that tables have while they're playing, and that might be too large an ask. That they might prioritize, their table may prioritize the personality of their table over this particular type of 4D element.
Right.
This, and a lot of times, look, I've been in plenty of 4D games where, like, laughing at dice rolls, or people maybe not necessarily not paying attention but haven't had an opportunity to speak their character's actions, and so an out of character indication, hey, Bacon, it's your turn. It's usually character name, so let's pretend that I am now also playing a character named Bacon, but like, Bacon, it's your turn, and then you go ahead and take your turn. So it's not like, don't do it ever, never, what are you doing, you're ruining the game. That's not what we're trying to say. And it's not really no out of character talking, because it happens. It's limited conscientiously. And we even say here in this section, like, if you need to excuse yourself from the game, don't ask permission, just do it. Like, we're not talking about no out of character talk to, like, prevent you from tending to an emergency, or answering your wife who's off screen, or answering a phone call that's important. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. And it might seem a little silly to say that, but I really feel like that needed to be made clear. So, or I should say we feel, I don't want to talk for you right here, but making that clear, I think, is essential. So, like, yes, we say in really big, bold letters in the header, no out of character talking, but that's not really what it is. Don't, just eye catchers. Don't read the section for yourself. I highly encourage you to read the trade-offs and pitfalls section, because we bring it back around in that section to say, hey, look, we know that a lot of what we've said here is not going to jive with some tables, and here's why.
And it goes back to the very beginning. Know the people you're playing with, know the system and intimately, part of your social contract. They all know the system, really well. If you don't, then, maybe don't try this, or maybe try it on your own without the group and ask if you can join a group who plays 40 and just experiment and try it. That's what I did.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, and we've talked about this before, which is that, you can also look at this handbook as a toolkit that you can draw from different ideas that you might try out yourself in your own play or as a GM in your own game. And you don't have to take everything. You can pick and choose what works for you, what works for your table, what works for the style of the group that you're running with. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing proposition.
Yes. Yeah, we've kind of hinted at that too, Mike, along the way, but I want to get this out because we're 41 minutes into this. And if someone stayed with us this long, thank you very much. But let me just give you now, before we talk some more, my number one takeaway from all of this in my limited experience is that even if you try a game and you're like I was, wow, that was really interesting. I couldn't do that all the time, but I might do it once in a while. Or if I had a separate group that only played that way, I can be really efficient with the time, and there's less talking. You're going to play more in less time. Even if you don't continue to play it, like I haven't played a 40 game now since I did that one with Crispy and Bacon. However, I have found not countless, but several times, because I play a Monday night game. Bacon plays in that game now. The cast of characters come and go. It's usually more beer and pretzels, but I found elements of these factors slipping into my subconscious. And suddenly I am only addressing the other people. I'm not calling them Tim or Bob or Jim. I'm calling them, Mofungo and Bingo and, Gorshnak, whatever your fantasy is.
Love those names.
Those are terrible, by the way. Write those down. Feel free to use those. But I find I'm using those tactics, right? Or those elements of 40 play. Or sometimes I like catching the party off guard, and I go from, I don't know, is it my turn? Yeah, because what do you think we got to do this? And in the next turn, suddenly I find myself going, I draw my sword and I start loping down the hall. I remember in one of our games I did this, and then I described jumping over the open pit trap. I had to make my roll. I'd made my roll. Anyway, I slipped into immersive style description in character play. And all of these little elements, you can start to add it to your regular play. I find it kind of cool, and I don't always know that I'm going to do it. And then it just starts popping up. Maybe if I played more, I'd do it more. But I think it's also one of those things that catches fire. If you do something like that, it just sounds cool to the other players. And then suddenly you notice they flipped and they've started talking in character too. Not all the time. We're still going to make a little joke here and there. So it's kind of a hybrid of game styles, but you are pulling some of this 40 style in, and it was very fun. So I will say, if anything else, if you try it, if you read the guide, which by the way, this new handbook is free on drive-through. So go get the dadgum thing, go print it out, whatever you need to do. And you could incorporate just one element at a time with your regular group, but you need to talk to them about it first. For Pete's sakes, if you're the GM, don't go shoving it down anybody's throat. Talk to them openly and transparently about it is my advice. And if they're up for it, great.
Completely agree.
I think we touched on no phones for obvious reasons. No rule books. I'm assuming that's the same thing, right? Don't people flipping through books and things. I'm skipping ahead here. Pick the right system. What do you want to touch on that real quickly? Is that
Bacon?
Yeah, sure. There are going to be some systems that don't, or rather that push back harder on trying to be in character. So there are systems like Draw Steel is one of them, and Blades in the Dark would be another one, where they kind of codify rules that require above the table conversation, meaning out of character conversation. Um, and those types of games where, let's say, I played in a Draw Steel game and I was a conduit, and conduits can heal other player characters, and I think there's boss involved too as well. But like, when the way that it's mechanically expressed is, I'm healing you, you can spend a recovery. And recovery, like, these are out of character mechanics that are mentioned in the rules. To do that diegetically, I have to come up with a way to express that in character as a description of an action that my character is taking. And that can increase the cognitive load of the entire table, because now not only are they having to remember their own character's rules and mechanics, now they have to remember mine, but even more specifically, they have to remember a specific expression of my abilities. And that can really push back hard on staying in character for as long as possible and as frequently as possible, which is like that. Now that doesn't mean that you can't 4D as a verb draw steel, right? Because those phrases, as long as possible and as frequently as possible, like, that does a lot of heavy lifting to say, well, if the system requires that you come out of character in order to discuss these specific mechanics or rules, then that's not a possibility that you stay in character during that. And so you can still apply 4D to these games. It's just going to push back harder on how long and how frequently you can get into and stay in character. And so when we say pick the right system, really it's the idea that, if your table wants to stay in character maximally, like, we want to be in character for 2 whole hours from start to finish, you're going to want to pick a different system than DCC, which has you referencing a whole bunch of tables in the rule book, than maybe EZD6, because it's very easy to play, it's very easy to track. The players can be made to be responsible for their own character's mechanics, and all the mechanics are pretty well the same thing. So it's just it's the idea that, depending on your preference, depending on the table preference, depending on how often and how long you want to get into and stay in character, you're going to want to pick a different system. But that doesn't mean you can't do 5e. Do 5e if you want to do 5e, right? Like, I don't know, Star Trek Adventures 2e if you want to do Star Trek Adventures 2. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. Just keep in mind that it may vary the length and degree to which you're able to stay in character.
And maybe the team all has that knowledge in the system too. So we're all
yes. Oh, yes.
I mean, I could see 4D being a challenge for if you have several newbies at the table. If you have 1 or 2, you might be able to get them along. But if it's a new group and a new DM, read this stuff, check it out, listen to videos like this. But
for sure,
take it seriously that you might not enjoy it, and because you'll be frustrated possibly if you don't have that confidence in the system and the rules knowledge, et cetera, and your players didn't all buy into it. There are some things you need to check boxes you need to check. Just for the sake of time, I wanted to skip ahead because I thought this was a brilliant point you guys make about, hey, here's a section starting on page 44, just talking to GMs. How does the GM, you're a player in this game too, you're an equal. You're not, a mercenary, a contractor, a trained monkey, anything like that. You are playing the game along with them, but you play it a little differently.
Yes.
So
you want to take this, Mike?
No, go ahead.
So GMs are players, but they occupy a very specific role, and so there are certain things, and this kind of breaks down into it maybe gets a little bit into like no duh territory, right? Because there are some things that we say that's like, well, all GMs have to do this isn't just a 4D GM sort of thing. But we do try to put that 4D perspective on it to say, when you're role playing an NPC, you are just like any other player character at the table, right? So truly, NPCs aren't really non-player characters. They're the GM's player characters.
Mhm.
They just need to do it. They need to rotate in and out of characters, which I don't know, maybe causes whiplash. I am not a frequent GM. I have been in the past, but it's been a very long while. So we want to make sure that we speak to GMs. There's also items like prep in here. Some GMs like to prep, some GMs don't like to prep, but prep can widely be regarded as a GM's investment in their own fun, in their own game experience. And so we try to address that. And in fact, we address it through directing people to a conversation that Crispy had with Dean on the Gallows Humor Games channel. Most of the information from that section comes from that conversation, and we actually say so up front in the section. But there's, some people don't like prep because with 4D, you're not constantly going to be going back to a rule book. You're not constantly going to be referring to notes because of the whole in-character sort of established expectation. Well, I shouldn't say you're not going to be. You could be, but maybe you don't want to be. And so prep becomes an idea of, well, you want to make sure that, if you want to prep, if you want to have NPCs ready to go, if you want to have situations ready to just drop into the scenario, then you're going to want to limit prep to things that you can remember, so that if you don't want to constantly be referencing rule books, you're not going to be. It's all just there. There.
Yeah.
And so it's those sorts of elements that we discuss. Now, again, like verisimilitude, it's like, this is kind of a no-duh statement. It's like, well, most GMs want to maintain the verisimilitude of their imagined world. So this has a little bit of a 4D bent to it.
I'm sorry, Bacon. I just have to ask a question, make a quick comment.
Yeah,
so
sure.
a no-duh statement. So this is new to me, and I love this. So is this like a yes but?
No.
A yes and
no.
Do these three go together?
No, it is a PG way of expressing like no crap. Like when you say, it's an obvious statement, right? Like when we say, hey, it's the job of the GM to maintain the verisimilitude of the world. It's like, well, no crap. That's every GM's job.
Sure.
So that's what I meant when I said that.
I was just
trying to.
I don't know. It struck me.
The only thing I want to add is with the GM as player concept is that it takes, I think GMing in 4D is in some ways easier than GMing in other styles that I've GM'd in. And that's because the burden of making action happen is put on players, less on the GM. And as a result, what you have is the GM is more free to think about how the rest of the world is reacting to what the players are doing. And in many ways, it makes it a bit more, we talk about in the player section, the motivations and goals that the players have, pursuing those, you're moving the action forward, you're pressing forward on your own, volition. And with the GM as player, it takes away the expectation that the GM is the end all and be all to the table.
Yeah. One thing we haven't even touched on, maybe I haven't gotten to it, but is the idea of co-creation.
Mm-hmm.
In this style of play, the players have more agency, I feel, than in any style of other play that I've experienced. And that is because they are co-creating along the way by filling in the descriptions of places. To your original point, the onus isn't all on the GM. The GM's painting a picture, keeping the describing the world at hand, but they are not having to fill in the awkward gaps when the players sit there and stare at each other and don't know what's going on, like we do in a regular, beer and pretzels game. That kind of leads us into this next point about the sandbox. And I think you guys make the case that it does lead itself very well to the sandbox style because of that player facility or that player agency. You agree, or is that true? Am I being accurate in that statement?
I mean, I think that the sandbox is is present because if you think about how the players are responsible for their character's motivations and goals, and going out into the world to try to achieve those things with their group, and the GM then makes the world around them real and react to them pursuing those. So a sandbox works really well with 4D in no small part because it allows room for players to pursue their ends the way they want to pursue them without the GM sort of, being directing, maybe I should say, them about how to go through an arc or how to go through an idea or a story or whatever. The players are the determining factor. They're the active agents in the equation.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. Bacon, did you want to add anything to that, or
No, I think that's pretty much all of it.
wise man? Just because I want to try to get this in under an hour, and I'm realizing now we could probably talk for 3 hours, but hey, we can always do a second video as things.
Yeah, you can bring us back. I'm happy to
and
come
there's
back.
more to say about this
again.
Or even a review of a recent experience with the game, and those can be done in shorter, longer times, whatever. I'm not paying by the minute or anything, so we can go as long as we want. But I do, just for the sake of our listeners, because I know it's hard to listen to really long form content, try to keep it under an hour here. So that gives about 5 minutes. Let me shoot down to the last section I really want to talk about. The back of the book is all appendices. There's character sheets. There's all kinds of helpful aids for jumping in and starting your game and trying to play in 4D style that will really be beneficial. But let's talk about that, the benefits of 4D play, which is down here on page 67. And same thing, maybe we can jet through these and kind of, at the end of the day, what can I expect in my game? What's going to make it different or better in 4D style? Don't everybody jump up at once.
No, sorry, I was processing. I think
Don't be afraid of the silence, Mike.
Yeah, I was. I think we have the idea of quicker turns, and I think that in some play styles or some ways tables play, you might be waiting 10, 20 minutes for your turn to come around, but because 4G really emphasizes kind of quick, punchy turns, what you get is a turn more often because everybody's taking about a 2-sentence or 3-sentence turn and then passing it along. And as a result, you get more turns, which I think keeps the action, hot, for lack of a better way to say it, but also keeps the turns more regular. And I think that's been my experience with 4D is that we have those quicker turns. You we'll also see greater player agency. And I don't want to say greater in the sense that greater than what, right? But greater in the sense that player agency is highly prized and encouraged in 4D play. Not that can't be the case in other styles of play. It can be. But that in 4D play, what we see is the burden of the players sort of acting on their own motivations and goals is present. It's an expectation. And so it really goes a long way in creating more space for that. And that includes things like co-creation, includes things like, the players guiding the process of the collaboration that's going on at the table, which is, super important. Player goals are prioritized because the players are going after their goals. You see things like, the in-character role play gives people a really deep experience at trying to express who their character is and what their character is about and plenty of space for that to occur. So anyways, before I continue on, I want to give Bacon a chance here so that I'm not monopolizing things. But I think there's a lot of great benefits to 4D that, make it worth picking up at least some of the ideas, and if not, giving it a try in a whole.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm going to add is that, like, if you find that some of these elements are issues at your table, maybe 4D can help. So, you know, there can be quicker turns if you stick to like the 2 to 3 sentences per turn, rule. I'll call it a rule. Suggestion, probably a better term. But there is, turns can inflate, right? So depending on the game that you're playing, depending on how many options you have, depending on how you want to do your turn, depending on if you're a fighter of high enough level and get to act 75 times in a round of combat, like your turn is going to get longer and longer and longer over the course of the game. And while there's no real accounting for that, like if you want to play D&D 5e and that's your game, it's going to happen. You can at least try to limit yourself as much as you're able, which will hopefully quicken turns. Again, just like with being in character as frequently as possible and for as long as possible, some systems might push back a little harder than others. And I think D&D 5e is a perfect example of that, especially with the fighter class. You get so many actions, you can do so many things in any given combat that, like, well, Bacon's character as a fighter is going to take a while. He's a 16th level fighter. We can all go make ourselves a sandwich. But if you're looking to solve some of these things as best as you're able without switching systems, 4D might be a way to help do that.
Yeah, some of it's the language of the players and how they express what actions they're taking and what they're doing. There's a separate argument. I'll go out on a limb because I'm not a co-author in this handbook, and I'll just state out flat out that I'm surprised you guys lumped 5e in one of the game systems that you could play in this stuff. I'm very dubious how that would work as much, just like DCC.
Well, here's the thing. Not to. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good.
And I need to stop that. We were just talking about this before we started the stream. Bacon, shut up. Let people finish. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
What I was going to say is that there are people who have done 5e games in 4D. There are people who have done Pathfinder. I want to say 1e, right? So Pathfinder 1e has been done in the 4D style. So it might be a surprise that we included it, especially for how much derision 5e gets these days. But it's also the biggest role-playing game in the world. And if you want to keep your game, if you want to play 5e, and that's really the point. The point isn't to wave people off of what their favorite game is. The point is to say, hey, here's this way you can play it. Maybe give it a shot. Like, that's the point. And if your favorite game is 5e, man, play 5e. If your favorite game is DCC, play DCC. If it's Draw Steel, play Draw Steel. You can still apply these ideas. And it's obviously, and again, I think we pretty well state in the handbook, you're going to have varying degrees of success depending on what game it is, what you're trying to implement, how hard is it pushing back on you. But don't not play your favorite game because we told you that you have to, use 2 or 3 sentences to take your turn. Just don't, that 4D's not the boss of you. We use that phrase in the book. Like, 4D's not the boss of you. If you want to try it, cool, try it, give it a shot. But don't hamstring yourself because you're trying to do 2 things at once that are maybe pushing back against each other. Just pick one and go with it. If you do your 5e thing. Or do the 4D thing, or do both if you're able to. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes it's going to require negotiation and navigation. When I say negotiation, I don't mean out of character above the table with the GM. I mean between the two, the style and the system. It's going to require some negotiation between those 2 things. But we're not here to tell you what not to do.
Yeah.
Which is now like a completely sidetracked point, but whatever. That's where I landed.
No, it's okay.
I'm going with it.
It's okay. I was throwing that out there. And one last thing I'll say about quicker turns, just in my little brief experiences, I loved the way that if it's your turn in combat specifically was so much faster. Don't state what you're going to do, and don't, for Pete's sakes, don't direct your conversation to the DM and go, hey, Bob, I think I'm going to cast Magic Missile. Instead, just say, I raise my hands and my flowing robes, and I start to conjure with the arcane words, my spell of magic missile, you know, and then you roll the die.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
say,
The
roll
idea
die,
is
just roll
like,
the die.
yeah, especially in combat, the idea is if I were actually in this situation right now, I'm not like things aren't going to slow down for me while I think. I
Right.
have to do something. I have to get on it, do something. I have to swing my axe, or I have to cast a magic missile, or like something has to happen now, or I may very well take an injury.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the idea, right? The idea is to be faithful to the situation and your character in the moment without pressing the pause button and saying, well, I could do this or I could do that. Just kind of allow yourself to be in character.
Yeah. And part of that is knowing when it's your turn, what to roll and that you have to roll. But that comes with knowing the system and all that.
Yes.
It's a pet peeve for me when people roll the die to see if they hit. They don't know if they hit. And then they don't know apparently that they have to roll damage next. You know, it's like, for Pete's sakes, just make the rolls and get to the next person. Anyway, I'm old and grumpy. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Okay. I want to kind of, let's see, there's probably some more here. We just got to quicker turns. We talked about greater player agency. What's encouraged goals? Can somebody touch on that just quickly?
Yeah. So it encourages 4D tends to, because of the increased agency and because of the increased, I don't know how to phrase that, so I'm not going to say it. Because of the increased player agency over their characters and because of the player-driven sandbox experience, really the way that anything is ever going to get done is if players have character goals, like if their characters have goals, if they have motivations, and if they actualize those goals and motivations, right? It's not just we're going to sit down and play an adventure path and the object is to kill the Lich. It's okay, no, we're dropped into this world, we're together for whatever reason we've decided in session 0. What do you want to do in this world? Well, my character has this motivation and wants to achieve it through this goal. And so that's really what we're talking about through encouraged goals, because it does encourage that type of play. At which in turn, many people would say, fosters a sort of buy-in to the game. And so they're more committed, more invested, it's more satisfying, that sort of thing.
And it's not a long drawn out backstory. These are high level goals of what their motivations are in the longer, broader game, maybe. So that you know what decision they might make from session to session.
Right. Like, well, it can come from a backstory. If you're a backstory kind of person, I am not, but that's completely separate from 4D, right? Like if you want to have a backstory and you were born in this particular province to a noble family who owned a certain amount of land and their leadership was usurped, and you want to get your leadership, you want to get your family's lands back, like you go through all that in a backstory, you can allow that to lead your character through their motivations and goals. But if you are like me, want to define your character through their actions in the moment, you can literally just whatever decision makes sense to your character in the moment. Okay, well, there is a threat there. Some people are messing with forces that could very well bring destruction down around the entire village. I need to stop those individuals. That's my motivation is now in this moment, according to my character's thought process, to discover who they are and to reason with them, and if not, prevent them through other means. And that's a perfectly reasonable motivation and goal, right? The motivation is, I don't want this village to be destroyed. The goal is, well, I need to find out who these people are and stop them.
Yeah, mercy, compassion, empathy, those kind of things.
Right. Or violence, whatever your choice is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this example, that's what we're describing. In character role play, feedback is processed, lighter load for GM. Any thoughts or want to touch on any of these benefits?
I mean, I think we've talked a great deal about in-character role play and feedback as part of the process. I think the lighter load for the GM, I mentioned earlier on, like when I've GM'd in 4D, it is in fact somewhat easier because you're letting the players free in the sandbox, and your responsibility is a lot less than when I've GM'd at other tables using other approaches, where there's more burden on me to sort of make the action happen. I don't know how else to describe it. Make things occur, give them their goals, or put goals before them and let them choose, or things like this. Whereas in 4D, if Bacon's character's goal is to stop the threat to the village, then I can rely on Bacon to start doing things to try to stop the threat to the village, and I can sit back and make the world react around that.
Yeah, I think the benefits section here was important to me because I wanted us to hear you guys how you would repitch this again to somebody and say, look, there's a lot to be gained here if you're interested enough to give this a try. And it can be as heavy or as light a lifting as you want.
Absolutely.
So again, hey, I want to thank both of you for coming on. We'll probably wrap it up here.
Sure.
There may be other discussion with one or both of you guys. And Mike, I hope we get to play at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you were there in the peanut gallery on Monday night, making comments in our very non-4D game. But it's all good as long as we're playing a game, we're having fun. So thanks again, both. Any closing comments you want to leave people with? Again, it's free, absolutely free. Drive-Through RPG has it, right? If they just search 4D Handbook, probably they would find it, or Mike Melnick or James Bacon.
Questing House Press.
Yeah, Questing House actually is what we have it under.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw that earlier today when I was making some notes. Questing House is the production company name we're using. Okay. So if you look for Questing House, you'll find all of the vast array of their products.
All one of them.
Which is the first one. But I do hope, hoping and wishing, and I have a lot of confidence you guys will probably, because you guys have great ideas, and I think you communicate them very well. And I think you'll do more of that in the future. I know you said you want to do another project together, but it might be more of a creative product as opposed to more of a procedural, philosophical approach to a game style. Yeah.
All right.
All right, well, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks to those watching too.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Thanks to those watching.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I don't say it anymore. I need to get back to it. My wife reminded me. Please like this video, share it with friends, get them talking about this. See if this is something you want to pursue, and of course, subscribe to my channel. And I will collaborate and share this with James with Better with Bacon, and go like his channel as well if you like these kind of discussions about role-playing games. And we will see you on the next video very, very soon. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.